Now, I would like to invite our next speaker for this session. The session is an address by BetterPlace. So we have a spoke from BetterPlace, that is none other than Ms. Mohana MD, Chief People and Culture Officer of BetterPlace. Mohana serves as the Chief People and Culture Officer at BetterPlace with 15 plus years of experience in BFSI and IT sectors, driving talent transformations at firms like SAP and Fidelity Investments. Can we all put our hands together and welcome Ms. Mohana on the dais?
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? We're good? Can you just bring up the slides? I'm really conscious of the fact that you're inching closer to your lunch and you have been in packed sessions back to back, so we'll try to keep it just to 10 minutes, okay? But I can promise you that it's going to be loaded with a lot of good information, a lot of good things that we're going to learn through this, right? Okay, so I'm here to share with all of you on one of the most compelling as well as a transformation that's really going on around us as we've gathered here today. So it's really how is HR technology playing such a key role in building equity, inclusion, as well as growth for our frontline workforce at large. So frontline workforce, for the purview of our conversation today, essentially is grey collar and blue collar worker, and predominantly your blue collar workers, right? Your Swiggy boys who become part of our life every day, your guards, all of them come into that particular sector, right? So there are 400 million just in India as a baseline, and by the end of this decade, you're going to see this number shift to 500 million, okay? And most of them, that's about 65% of our frontline workforce, is actually in the unorganized sector still. What has happened is a beautiful domino effect where essentially the frontline worker in this last decade has access to verifiable ID cards like Aadhaar. They have mobile phones, which has really changed the whole demand and supply connect itself at large in India. And one of the interesting things is you will only find them in millions across the world, and you will actually see that the problems are really the same. And the pain points are something I'm going to touch upon very soon in my future slides as well. So because of COVID and a crisis which is actually something all of us have closely experienced, there's a rise of demand for the supply of frontline workforce at large. So you'll see that 37% of jobs were additionally created just in the last few years thanks to the pandemic. There are 51 million jobs which are going to be added just for the frontline sector itself at large, just alone in India. And predominantly, you're seeing the newer age industries like e-commerce, logistics, mobility, etc., giving rise to jobs like delivery, delivery executives and the like as well, right? So essentially, if this is happening and there's a greater demand and there is actually a huge workforce, and what's actually happening between the demand and supply itself, and I'll touch upon some of the pain points. So two parts of the lens, right? One is really from just the frontline worker itself. So many people, largely in the unorganized sector, most of them are paid less than 15,000 rupees a month, right? And they actually don't really have access to financial inclusion in our country. They don't get insurances easily, they don't get loans easily. There's no concept called early wage, which is predominantly existing in the market so much as we speak. A lot of them actually don't even have a career path. This is something that we're examining as an organization as well. How do we enable people towards skilling? And someone talked about learning so much, right? We get so much of exposure. What happens to frontline workforce at large? And ultimately, I think because it's the policy framework, etc., which the Indian government is really talking about as well, we hopefully will see some dramatic changes in the next decade to come, right? Or this decade itself. From an enterprise standpoint, the workforce life cycle itself is quite short, huge attrition, access to the right labor shortage, which comes with the fact that they don't actually have very good skill and expertise, is predominantly, the problem that exists for enterprises itself. The skill gap and rising demand, so there's a holistic problem that actually creates an opportunity for all of us to actually address and look at how do we enable frontline workforce. Now that I've said that, right, and we understand broadly what's going on, what do we do about the situation and how do we address this entire millions of people who are around us, right? Can technology actually play a key role to reduce attrition, to increase productivity of these people and ultimately enable better skilled workforce for our country and around the world? And the bigger picture from what I started is, can tech actually play a big factor in ensuring there's equity, inclusion, growth for this entire population and their families? Very few people have multiple people working in organizations in the frontline workforce within a family itself. So a lot of those kind of questions which come up, and some of the internal and industry-wide research tells us that we as industry leaders need to take perspective from a holistic standpoint to actually make solutions that are very, very close to the heart of the frontline workers itself. Ensure that you as organizations give more benefits that are closer to them, be it insurance, etc. Ensure that the skilling is something that is part of the model of actually solving for where people get development on the go. And ultimately, do you have cleaner processes? Are they efficient? Because most organizations today, they don't speak in hundreds anymore. Most of our clients have thousands, right? They're talking in thousands in their factories. But you're still dependent on Excel files, you're still dependent on paper pencil. So can you adopt technology to actually drive efficiency within organizations? Okay, so those organizations that have actually adopted technology, and I'm leaning more towards technology and I'll come to why as well, they have increased productivity, cost as well, reduced cost as well as attrition, right? And on the frontline workforce angle, you will notice very interestingly more women are able to participate. And more women are actually participating because they get flexibility. They have access now to greater number of flexible jobs and gig jobs as well, thanks to the mobile technology that it has brought organizations to platforms closer to the large workforce, the workforce closer to the jobs as well. Right? So all of this is actually very nice, virtuous cycle that's slowly being created thanks to technology. This is all very interesting stuff for us to just, absorb. In 2021, you had more than most of the frontline workforce that you can track actually having a mobile, like I mentioned, so smartphone users. 50% of them actually have degrees. So unlike what our perceptions might be, they do study and they are educated. In 2022, what has happened is you had well over 600 million internet users, and this number is only going to grow. As you can see, in 2040, it's projected to have 1.5 billion internet users in the frontline workspace. Just in 2022, you had so many people getting onto e-learning platforms. Even our own platforms, there about 4 million minutes were used in a given year. And that is actually going to lead to higher education within the frontline workforce. So ultimately, India alone, and imagine the rest of the world, has a skill engine waiting to be leveraged, which we really haven't really focused on as much as we should have. So one other interesting thought that I thought I'll share with you is, you have something called stable jobs, you have labor naka jobs. All of them basically are either doing tasks like plumbing, they are actually delivery boys who are more stable jobs. So there's a beautiful cycle that's actually playing out where stable jobs like healthcare workers, etc., falling in the frontline workspace is accessible today, and it's moving slowly to become full-time jobs through the smartphone revolution itself. Accessibility towards each other is actually being observed. Labor naka jobs are also being found on smartphones, and basically labor naka jobs, which used to be just task-driven and small few hours kind of a role, right? They are actually becoming part-time jobs. So there's again another ecosystem that is evolving in terms of just what's happening with the job space around frontline workforce itself. I have another minute. I'm so happy that I've been able to sort of share so much with you in such a short time. But a lot of this hard-hitting data, right? There are few players in the market. And one of the reasons why I personally joined BetterPlace, where I'm leading the talent charter, is because we can truly make a difference to this large number of people and this workforce that exists within and around us. So we actually are an organization that makes software. We're making organizations more efficient through a software layer, which looks at hire to retire kind of module. But we also provide a service which is on hiring, providing BetterPlace money, that is early insurance, as well as loans, etc., right? So a couple of things that become very important is companies which are in this space, they are aspiring to become, a part of the digital transformation for larger organizations, to bring greater equity through diversity, bring more women into the play, to ensure the earning per hour and the earning capability of these people who are so many numbers actually enabled, as well as ultimately, I think you need a skilled workforce, just like how our whole last 20 years, we've seen the organized sector and the white-collar sector becoming amazing, and there's so many leaders in front of me who are so well-skilled leaders for the world. We need to look at an aspiration that we need to build for this community, which is all around us and in millions. And we individually have a responsibility towards that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mohana, for that crisp yet a wonderful session. I would like to invite Mr. Ranjit Kompi on the dais to do the honors. Can we please put our hands for Ms. Mohana here?